Evening, everyone. It's good to be back, sort of, but it's a short week for me, so that's the better part. Thursday evening, the 24th of August, video number 1884 for your closing comment. Okay, there were a couple of big turns today, and there were a couple that looked like they might have gotten a little out of hand, but so this morning we talked about Boeing problems or possible problems with the 737 MAX again, and the stock was 224 down 458 or 2%. Well, it never even saw those levels. Um, and the last on it is 217.31 down 11.27. So almost a 5% decline there. Just more of the same. Wasn't like there was anything spectacular that came out during the day. It just continued to get chewed up over and over and over again. Okay, Nvidia, which I told you last night and again this morning, was as high as 520. However, in the real world today, after being as high as 519.55, and being 507 pre-open, which was up about 35, the stock topped out today at that in that high range, 507, but came all the way down to 466.70. The last is 469.21, down $1.90 or 0.4%. This is what happens when everybody on the face of the earth owns your stock, and everybody on the street, especially that jackass Kramer, is telling you how it's never going down again, and etc. So, while we didn't have during regular hours, a big new high followed by a severe break, we did have a new high, and a pretty strong break. I mean, I know that people get kind of desensitized to this, but you know, when everybody's talking about it, same old thing. You know, when everyone's on one side of the boat, you better be heading for um, the other rail. Okay, after the close, we had Gap, we had Mrvl, we had Ulta. Gap was a miss on revenues and a beat on earnings, but they loved it. It had closed at 953, or the high had been 953. And the high after the news came out, at first immediately traded up to 1046. Then reality set back in, and it fell all the way back to 870. Last is 967, which is up 2 cents on the day, but it is 14 cents off where it closed, up just 0.21. But, Gap has been so often a disappointment that this actually looks pretty good. They went through the Gap, they went through Old Navy, they went through Athletica, and, everything looks somewhat better. Okay, we had Mrvl, which had inline revenues and a slight beat on earnings. But the fact is, that's another one that has, you know, participated in this. It actually had a range of 64 to 56.94, and the last it was trading at the close, regular hours, 57.29 down 421. That was part of the Nvda, SMH, AMD, all of them, a bit tired. So after the earnings, we went down to 53.60. So that would have been down about $7.50. We came right back up, and we closed right off the lows, 54.06, down 7.45 or 12.1%. Dollar Tree was a bit of a disappointment, not in the numbers or even in the same store sales, but inventory problems, and looking forward at margin issues based on theft and breakage, which is what they basically call theft. So that one down almost 13%. Ulta was a beat top and bottom line and good guidance. It had closed the day at 422.74, down 15.22, and it rallied up to a new high of the day, 439.85, and then came all the way back to 413. Last on it is 432, and that is down $5.98. And the two disasters du jour. RETO. RETO is an it's a building materials company. It's got some tie to China. Um, it did a 1 for 10 a couple of months ago, um, and the stock traded down to $1. Since then, of course, with a limited float, it had moved up to 610. This morning, it made a new high, recovery high of $7.36. And then the excitement started. They took it down to 95 cents. The last on it is $1.29, down $5.39, or just a scant 80%. And the second one, which everybody knows about, AMC and APE. So they reversed AMC 1 for 10, and after that the high was $41. Today's high, after 3 days of sell-off, was 1660, and the low 1333. Now this is interesting because it closed $14.26, down 53. What's interesting about it is by doing the split, they'll be able to issue even more shares. And APE, which is now 10 APE shares for every 1 share of AMC that you get. And remarkably, the stock had a range today of 236 to 129. And the last is $1.42. And I find that interesting because it just shows you there is absolutely no arbitrage available here. 1 for 10, 14.26, 1 for 10 on $1.42, 14.20. So nobody's playing these two for 6 cents. That I can guarantee you. Okay, so the Dow was higher and came back in. Of course, um, Boeing was a big piece of that. When you take Boeing, which is an $8 Dow move for every dollar that it moves, you can see where going down 4 to going down 11 would be pretty hefty in the Dow. But after a higher open, we ended up down 373.58, or 1.08. The biggest loser, though, was the NASDAQ. Down 257.06. It was the big loser of the day, down 1.87%. S&P also got pounded here, 59.70, 1.35. The Russell down 23.75, or 1.27. The best performer was the transports, only down 119.82, or 0.76. The thing that's disturbing here is the fact that the VIX is only 1720, only up $1.22 after the last week and a half or so. And although advanced declines were 3.5 to 1 to the downside on both the NYSE and the NASDAQ, the volume was a remarkably low 4.4 billion. I've been mentioning this every day until we get some sort of a high volume flush. This market is not going up. They will continue to sell the rallies as opposed to buying the dips. Speaking of buying the dips, Oil closed 79.05, which was up only 16 cents, but it had been down $1.40 more than that during the day. So it came back and closed 23 cents from the high and $1.50 from the low. Nat gas was up. It traded as low as 253, closed at 263. And the build in that gas was 18 billion cubic feet. Last week, it was a build of 35 billion. Gold was down 1, silver was down 4 cents. Bitcoin still getting hit, down 645 at 25,995. The dollar was up 59 cents, although the bonds were not that hard hit. They were only down about 1/16th. The chart on the screen is the 10-year. And I'm showing you this because you just can't you can't see this often enough. A bottom, a lower high after the rally, a lower low, a lower high. This is the same story I've been telling you about bonds in general for a year. Um, Came back down, new low, tried to bottom here, and look at that. It was up big here, closing on the high, and yet it could not get through that same old point of the breakdown. 2-day double top, closing on the low, a little bit lower tonight, not enough that it really matters. But, just to give you another peek here, take a look at the long bond. The 10-year is the one everybody's talking about, but the long bond is got the same thing in spades. Not only did it get up above its prior breakdown, it rallied right up to the falling 10-day moving average, 20-day moving average, um, and immediately turned back down and is basically also unchanged tonight. So there you go. We have not a lot of economic news tomorrow, but at 10:05, uh, Sir Powell speaks at Jackson Hole. So I guess we'll hear what he has to say. I cannot imagine that it's anything more than we're data dependent. We're going to have to stay higher for longer. I mean, what's the guy going to say? He just told us that 2 weeks ago. All right, folks, I'll be back first thing in the morning. Good to be back.